Hi everyone, it's Jodi with Inspiring Joy. If you're new, welcome to my channel, and if you're returning, welcome back. So today I'm going to take a bowl that I picked up at an antique store a few weekends back and make it a little bit different. So currently, here's the bowl. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint it and create an effect of kind of an old world texturized base to it. So it'll have kind of a light color and some darks and different hues to it. So once it's done, hopefully we'll still have the idea is to still have this edging here, the scallop edging all the way around. I might do a little bit on the inside with the yellow, just so when I put dirt in it and bring the dirt up towards the top, it doesn't show as much yellow. So I might do a little bit of kind of a burnishing inside the bowl too. But the goal here is to take this and transform it into this. So let's get started. Okay, so to get started, what I'm going to do is I have this white acrylic paint, crafter's paint, and I'm going to use this and my paintbrush, and I have some baking soda, and I have some coffee grounds that I removed from our coffee pot coffee maker this morning, and they are, my husband John put them onto a tray just so I could more easily access them, but they're still kind of wet and kind of gritty. And this is going to help create the color of that burnished kind of brown, aged, weathered look. So the idea is to take your paint and paint most of the outside and then mix the baking soda into the paint to create more of that weighted texture look. So then you go back over your base paint that you've done and add the textured paint with the baking soda mixed in. And then you come back with the coffee grounds and you rub the coffee grounds onto the pot itself, and that will add some of the color. I do have some additional metallic acrylic paint set as well that I picked up at Hobby Lobby. I may not need that though, so I'm going to set that aside for right now. If you want to water down your paint, just so you can have more of the effect of brush strokes and things, feel free to do that. I might do that. I'm going to see. I'm going to try it without the watered down paint first, just paint, and then I'll maybe add a little bit of water to the paint in my solo cup and see what happens. So a lot of this today is just kind of a trial and error to see what the effect is and what the look is that I want. Once I achieve that, then we'll do the rest around the whole bowl, but I'll start in one area on the bowl and see what it looks like, and we'll adjust as we go. So to start with, I'm gonna go ahead and do my painting on the bowl, and then I'll add in a little bit of the baking soda. For this, I'm also going to put on some rubber gloves just to protect my hands from getting stained either from the paint. The paint's acrylic, so it will wash off versus an oil paint, which is a harder wash, a harder removal. So it's an acrylic paint. It should wash off fine, but with the coffee grounds and the different stains, I don't want to have to worry about getting that out of my fingers. So I'm going to go ahead and do it this way. So I'm going to start by adding the color of paint to the pot and just kind of doing a light kind of wash over it, just to kind of start covering up some of the dark black. And I don't want to cover this area too much down here or this area up here too much. I do like how that already has kind of the brown and different scroll work. So my goal is to just do some brushwork of this paint. And I think I'm going to put some on my paper here, and then I can just dab. If you have paper plate or something at home that you can use, feel free to do that too. That might work better for you. But you know, I kind of like the brush strokes. So I'm just going to do a heavy coat of this white with the brush strokes, cover as much as I can of the black. This is going on pretty quickly, pretty easily. So I'm going to go all the way around the bowl. I'm just doing a rough job of going around, covering the colors that are originally there. I'm not worrying too much about how I'm doing this because I will come back after this dries a bit and do another layer. So let me put some more paint on my paper. or starts to dry, I'm going to add some paint to the inside of my cup. And then I'm going to add my baking soda. It's up to you how much you add. I'm just kind of eyeballing things. And then you'll want to get something to stir it with. I think I'm just going to use the end of my handle. Mix it together. Add more paint if you feel you need it. Add more baking soda as well. Your goal is to get sort of a pasty consistency. Sort of a thick, if you think of icing, if you make icing at home, think of your icing becoming thicker the more sugar you add to your eggs and so forth. So it's getting there, it's thickening up. So I think what I'm going to do is put some on my glove and kind of go around the bowl, making a little bit of a texture to it, like this. I'm going to put it on rather thick. Coat it pretty well. I have a little bit of a wet glove here, so I'm going to take the coffee grounds, which I laid out on a tray. So the coffee grounds from our coffee this morning, my husband dumped onto the foil, and I'm going to take a little bit in my hand, in my glove, and then I'm going to, and this is going to get a little messy, but it's okay. So I'm going to just kind of smear it on here, creating this textured effect. And some more of this paint as well. I might have to come back and do 2 coats on this just because it doesn't, some of the original part of the bowl might come through. So, but we'll see how that looks. Let me just turn it a little bit here and do this side. Very cool. I like the color that the coffee grounds is giving this. Very cool. And I like the dimensions as well from the grounds, kind of giving it that kind of clay-like look. Okay, so I let the pot dry for a bit and it's a lot more dry now. And so what I'm going to do is come back with these acrylic paints, and I think I'm going to use these and this sponge to create some additional color effects. The coffee grounds are great. It's adding some color, but it's not giving all the color that I want. And I want a little bit more texture color components to this. So I also have this, I picked this up from Hobby Lobby. It's called, the sponge is a sponge painter. Here's the label. So I'm going to use that sponge, these acrylic paints, also from Hobby Lobby, and do kind of like a stippling effect and go over it in different ways. So what I'm going to do is put the paint on a piece of paper again, like I did the white paint. And then just start dabbing the paint onto the pot. So let me show you that. What I'm also going to do before I get too far into that is I'm going to wipe off a little bit of the coffee grounds. I think some of those got a little thick in areas, so I just want to make sure that any excess that might fall off is removed as I do this here. I think it gives a really cool and really neat effect. I just want to make sure. Okay, I'll set that back down there, and now let's get back to the paint. Hi everyone. So it's been a couple of hours since I finished putting on the multiple coats of paint, and so I'm going to now continue to do a few touch-ups with some white paint and some of the metallics and see where we are with regards to the colors and some of that look. Right now the color is a little bit more metallic than I want, so I think right now I'm going to go over it with some paint that is a little bit less metallic and see where we land. So I'll take you through the rest of this process. It's kind of a multi-stage process. You want to, as you're building the layers, let things dry. So it does take a little bit of time, probably a day or two roughly to put this together the way that I'm doing it. But if you have a different way, feel free obviously to do it that way. But for this particular bowl and dish that I'm using, I want it to be styled a certain way. So I'm taking time to do that. So anyway, I'll walk you through the rest of this process and then I'll show you what it looks like in the end. The sink and kind of brush off any excess coffee grounds that might be loose, because I don't want that coming off around the house, obviously. So I am going to kind of just do some added gray in this area up here, because this is still pretty yellow. I'm just kind of tapping some white that I've added to the metallic to give it that gray, more gray muted color and less yellow. I'm going to do the top as well. Okay, so I think I have the desired effect that I want. Everyone, okay, so it is the next day and I wanted the entire pot to dry from all of the painting and the different techniques yesterday. So I'm going to now finish it up and walk you through that process. Before I get started painting the remaining paint, I did take this pot outside and I took my sanding block and I went over it a bit all the way around at the scalloped edge, down here at the base. I went around it, just kind of rubbing it loosely to make sure that anything loose paint, loose coffee grounds, anything that would be on the texture itself would flake off in the trash and not in our home, essentially around the pets. So I wanted to make sure it was secure, so when I add the additional paint, it adheres well. So that might be a technique to do, whether you use Mod Podge or some other element to create your texture. After doing so, after it dries, fully dries, take some sanding paper, scrape around the whole vessel, come back, touch up your paint, and then that should ensure that whatever material you are using to create your texture will be affixed to your vessel or to your pot. So let's get started painting. New paints that I picked up from some paints that I have downstairs in our basement. So these are the two additional paints that I'm going to use. One is a chocolate brown and one is a gray. I'm going to kind of mix these together and independently use them as well to add a little bit more texture and character. I'll flash up on the screen at some point here during this video as well the inspiration I have for this pot. And you'll kind of see it looks a little bit like concrete, the pot that I'm inspired by and the inspiration for me doing this one. So if that's not the look you're going for, certainly pick whatever paint colors, paints you want, and different finishing techniques and texturizing techniques you'd like to use. But for this particular experience, as it were, I wanted to try different techniques and create some depth and dimension on the pot. And I think I've achieved that. And it looks a little bit like concrete, which I think is pretty cool. You know, as if somebody took concrete and kind of molded this, or clay and molded this, and then created some texture with their clay. Okay, so I have this little tray, and I'm going to put some paints into it. Make sure this is opened. Some of my paints are new and some have been used. So I just want to make sure I'm set to go. So this is my chocolate brown. This is called dark chocolate. And this is my gray. It's called Slate Gray by the Deco Art brand. So I'm going to put brown in one and gray in another pod. Oh, you do want to make sure you shake them, especially if you haven't used them in a little while. Okay, so I have gray in one and brown in the other. I'm going to take the same sponge that I had yesterday, and I'm going to mix the two. I'll do the brown first and the gray, and I put them onto a separate piece of paper. And then I'm going to just kind of dab in other areas just to enhance the look. Now, if you want to, you know, add brown in certain places so it's less gray to look a little bit more dirty, that works. My paints yesterday were a bit more metallic than I actually want the finished pot to be. So I'm going back over in some of those areas as well where they look a little bit more metallic, and I'm adding this more matte finish acrylic paint. Still in the acrylic paint family. And you just kind of go through the whole pot and add your coloring wherever you want to create your dimension. There is no wrong way to do this, in my opinion. It's really up to each person and how they want their pot to look. So what I'll do is just keep going around this and finishing up this technique. And then I'll show you the finished product when I'm done. Okay everyone, so I am done adding the paint to the pot, and I think we're going to be good. I'm going to let it all dry. I'll probably take the sponge sandpaper again and do another scrape around the sides on the outer side just to make sure everything is secure and no other little bits will fluff off or you know, flake off at different times. Certainly if you handle the outside a lot, you may want to spray some kind of sealant or concealer on it, but for this time and for what I'm going to use it for, I don't anticipate needing to do that. Although if I find I do, then I'll go ahead and get something and do that. But for now, I think it turned out great. I really like the colors. I know on camera it looks a little more metallic, the interior for sure, but the outside I think looks really great. I really like this texture detail from the coffee grounds. I like the thickness of the detail as well from the baking soda, and the paint came together nicely. I think if I were to do it again, I would not use metallics. I would definitely use acrylics that are of a matte finish paint, just your basic acrylic paint, I think would be best. I might even use Mod Podge instead, just to give it some extra additional texture. But you know, for what it is and for this effort, I think it turned out great and I'm really happy with it. And I look forward to styling it with some artificial plants. I don't have a hole in the base, so in this one I will probably use some foam and artificial plants and some moss. I think that'd be fantastic. Very nice look. So for now, it's done. And once I do style it, I'll take a picture of that. But for now, I'm very happy with it. So I hope you find some joy in doing something creative for yourself, for your family, whatever it looks like for you. But take time in the middle of the day, in the evening, in the first dawn of the morning to try something new and different and challenge yourself. Get out there, find some joy, bring some brightness to your day. And thank you for joining me. I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye now.